Hi everyone, welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sip and Spin. On tonight's show, we'll be enjoying a little death in the afternoon. I'll be talking and sharing a wonderful link on how to dye fiber with nothing more than highlighters, and I'll be showcasing a few fun gizmos and gadgets that are themed appropriately for one of my favorite holidays of the year. Stay tuned. Hi everyone. As I said, welcome to the Halloween edition. This is hands down my favorite holiday of the year, and I'm going a little steampunk this Halloween because I've got some things that I want to showcase that I feel ties in really well with the steampunk theme. First off, I want to talk a little bit about a classic cocktail, Death in the Afternoon. To my knowledge, and I truly apologize for this, I don't know of a way to create this without the alcohol because there are only two ingredients in Death in the Afternoon: absinthe and champagne. Absinthe is now legal in the United States, and it has been for a number of years. And what I wanted to share with you is this really cool thing that absinthe does. This came all the way from Germany. My little sister brought it back. No, I have not consumed the entire bottle. Most of it spilled on the trip home. So her luggage consumed most of this bottle. But what I wanted to show you was how it changes. This is one of the cool things with absinthe. In the bottle, it's this really clear, crisp, almost apple. It's kind of like green apple green. When you mix it with rock sugar and ice cold champagne, it becomes this amazing kind of cloudy, ethereal. I understand what they mean when they talk about dancing with the green fairy. The things that you hear about absinthe, though, to my knowledge, are not completely true. Now, we'll have to see by the end of this show if I'm not making any sense and I'm on an incredibly... Well, we'll just see what happens by the end of the show. I do like it quite a lot, though. It's quite tasty. So I'm going to set this down so I don't knock it off. So one of the things that I want to start out with, for those of you that have been following me, I just finished a 5K walking it with a support spoon and a support spindle, or a support spindle spinning spoon. Gotta love the alliteration. And so I just wanted to show what I spun. So on that 5K walk, this is what I was able to spin. And I didn't realize it, but the greens in this fiber glow under black light as well, which was a happy accident. And what I think is even more fun is I spun about enough yarn to fit into a wine glass. So I have a feeling that's going to stay there as my kind of reward for that particular race, which was so much fun. And one of the things that I realized as people started chiming in, there are some woodworkers in the United States in the industry that are working on a prototype for support spindle spoon production. So I'm going to encourage you to keep your eye on the Spanish Peacock website. I have a feeling in the upcoming months we're going to see some pretty exciting things coming from that site. If nothing else, the spindles there are amazing. So if you don't find a spoon, I guarantee you're going to find something else that's just as much fun. Now, the other gadget, gizmo. I'm going to go with the gizmo. The next gizmo, I don't think this is a gadget. The two other themed things that I want to talk about come from Pandias jewels. We always need, for those of us that are knitters or crocheters, we're always looking for fun stitch markers. And Pandias Jewels does a wonderful job of putting together themed stitch markers. So that's one set that I got, and this is this year's themed pin for the holiday, and the sheep glows, which is even more fun. So if you have the opportunity to check out Pandias Jewels, I would encourage you to do so. Now, the tool that I want to showcase, because it ties right in with the whole steampunk theme, is a spindle from Galen Designs. The fiber is actually called Hallows Eve, and I unfortunately can't remember where I got the fiber, but I'm sure I found it online somewhere. One of the things that I wanted to share with you, for those of you that do like the steampunk theme, or you kind of like the look of steampunk, which it's always been fun. I read a lot of books that are kind of in that dystopian Victorian era, and I collect original Harper's Bazaars from about 1880 all the way up to 1900, and they are an amazing wealth of information about that era, and it's so much fun to read about it. John Galen Designs designs spindles from old watch and clock parts. Now, for those of you that are kind of purists out there and you're like, oh my gosh, you can always fix them, I believe there are just some watches that are beyond repair, and I love seeing what he does with them, so I would encourage you to check out the website. As with all of his spindles, they come with a metal shaft. They have the face of a watch, and then they have the finial on the back, and it's clear, so you can see the back as well. Now, this is a drop spindle, but because of the weight of it, and because I want to spin very fine, I do want to spin thinner than I typically would with a drop spindle, I'm going to use a support bowl. And this is an enamel bowl that came from Dancing Goats. And it works really well because it's just enough to keep the spindle going and enables me to spin very fine. It doesn't dance too much. And the reason why I like it is when you're spinning this fine, you really need some support. And it's just a little. Typically with John Galen spindles, I spin thread, and I have quite a bit spun up that I will hopefully be able to use in an embroidery project. One of the things I like about using a spindle bowl, even with a drop spindle as well, it removes one of those worries, whether or not you're going to drop it or what's going to happen if the thread breaks. So again, that's John Galen Designs. And the last thing that I want to talk, hang on, I got to wind on. It's one of those things you can't just set it down. You have to get it to a stopping point. Some of you, I'm sure, will understand. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is kind of a cool thing that I discovered. This came in the Paradise Fiber of the Month box last year. If you've not had an opportunity to check out Paradise Fibers, if you look way back to one of my first seasons, I did an overview of 3 of the most popular spinning boxes or spinning kits that are currently available. I did the spinning box, I did Paradise Fibers, and I did Napa Valley Fibers. And I'm going to talk more about Napa Valley Fibers in an upcoming show, especially because they are located out in California. And for any of you that follow the news, you'll know that California right now is in fire season. So I'll be talking about that in an upcoming show. Paradise Fibers does a really nice job of theming their monthly kits. And I believe this was their back to school kit last year. And for full instructions, you can find it on their website. But you can actually dye fiber with highlighters. And this is just like using KoolAid. So for those of you that are familiar with KoolAid dyeing, you can do this with highlighters as well. I'm going to do just a very quick run through. For the full instructions, check out Paradise Fibers. Basically, you need about 2 cups of hot water, really, really hot water. Then open up your highlighters, and all you have to do is pull off the bottom. And these, I just used a pair of pliers, and the bottoms pop right off. Now, when you open this up, the cone, depending upon how much time you want to spend, I took a pair of scissors, and once I pulled the core out, I split the core and dumped the core in the water, and I got the dye out much more quickly that way. And then you will definitely want to put gloves on, rubber gloves. For those of us that use a box to dye our hair, these are always available to us. So your fiber, and Paradise Fibers suggested Cheviot. This is Tunis from the Shave 'em to Save 'em, and I will be dyeing this and sharing the results with it on my Instagram page. You'll need some vinegar, actually quite a lot. You're going to want enough vinegar that's going to soak your fiber. So you'll soak your dry fiber in vinegar and then add the highlighter water to that. Now you've got a couple choices. You can either cover it and let the heat do its job and come back in a couple days, or you can get the assist from the microwave, and that's what I did in order to get this. I did get a little bit of a microwave assist. Here's what I noticed though. In using the microwave, it actually killed some of the vibrancy of the color. So when I do this again with the Tunis, I'm just gonna stick to the hot water, covering it with saran wrap and just letting nature do its job. I'm gonna know that the fiber has consumed all of the dye when the water is clear, and that's the exact same way that you know that KoolAid dyeing is done as well. It's when the water runs clear, you're good, and then you just need to rinse it and let it dry. So I'm going to clear off my table, and then I'm going to do a little bit of blending, because the whole reason behind dyeing with highlighter is because I wanted a very specific fiber to go with this bristlecone goddess spindle. It says we're all mad here, and it has the Cheshire Cat on it. And I realized it spins really, really nicely in the uranium glass custard cup that I collected. I picked this up from an antique store, and there's no way I'm ever going to consume food out of something that's made from uranium glass. That just seems like a poor choice. What I am going to do is use it as a spinning bowl. So give me just a second to clear off the table, and I'll be right back to do a little bit of fiber blending and talk about another gizmo, gadget, fun thing that you can use to blend your own fibers. Okay. So as I'm blending this, I don't know, I go back and forth on whether or not I actually like using blending boards or not. I think I do, but it really is like painting with fiber. And I've actually been finding my inspiration in some pretty interesting places. So The Cloud Spinner, I believe, is a book that I discovered, and it's been out for a little while, but I blended some fiber that matched the colors on the cover of that book, and I was so enamored by what I got when I spun that when I found the bristlecone spindle, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to blend some fiber that reminds me of the Cheshire Cat. So I dug through my stash and I found fiber from everywhere. And so I feel a little bit like the blending board is my canvas, and I'm telling a story essentially through canvas. And it kind of ties in. I've talked a little bit about stories and storytelling, and Ray Bradbury's The Halloween Tree is one of my favorite Halloween stories. I've loved that story. I've loved the book since I was a child. And like how some people tell A Christmas Carol on Christmas Eve, because Dickens wrote a relatively short book. The Halloween is also a relatively short book, and it looks at why certain traditions are celebrated. And I really think that he did it in a wonderful way, and there's a lot of rich symbolism in it as well. So it's one of the things that inspired me. As I saw a picture of the most current Cheshire cat, I thought, I want to create a fiber that reminds me of the Cheshire cat. And I do really like cats. For those of you that know me, you know how much I love my cats. So this sort of goes hand in hand. So I'm just layering. And this first one, I don't know what I'm going to go ahead and finish layering on some of the dark colors here, and then I'll pull this one off and spin it a little bit and see what it looks like under the black light. I haven't decided if the highlighter dyed fiber is one of those where I'm going to want more of it or less. I'm kind of on the fence, as it were. You know, I've noticed something as I've gone back and I've watched some of these. Living in the Midwest, we have some very specific sayings that pop up a lot. I noticed it on the wine run. Okay, granted, I was drinking a lot of wine that day, but I realized that the term "I'm just saying" is something that I say an awful lot. So I was starting to think about that too. So I apologize for the verbal tics in some of my shows. I'm trying to be very mindful of what I'm saying, but I'm also drinking. And that does affect. See, now I'm a little bit concerned because right now on the board, this looks muddy, and that worries me. As my art teacher once told me, sometimes you just have to let art flow. So let's see what's going to happen. All right, so I've painted it on. I've got some darks. I've got some lights. Okay, let's see what we got going on here. I like this. That seems fun. I'm nervous. This is one of those things where I'm like, I'm halfway tempted to say stop the camera, because if this turns out and it looks like mud, oh well, it's fine. I'm okay. I can admit defeat. And I've also learned that instead of taking them off in one giant rolag, it's better to go about halfway up the board. It's going to probably be uneven. Okay, so here's the first one. There's one. Let's get the second one. I have never been so nervous. This scares me. You know, sometimes you do stuff and you're like, whatever, it'll turn out just fine. And then sometimes you do stuff and you're like, oh, this could go so wrong. But you know what? I will give a shout out to Mandy of Spun Ware Over the Rainbow as well. For those of you in Canada, if you're looking for a brilliant dyer in Canada, that would be Mandy. And I know that if I totally botch this, I can connect with her and she will create something truly amazing. I'm really good at trying stuff. I'm not so good at getting great stuff that I've tried. Okay, so before I blend anymore, I'm just going to set this down. And I'm going to go with the smaller one. And let's see what we got. So again, starting with the support spindle, there's lots of ways to support, but I don't ever like to start with a leader. I cannot tell you why. So I feel like, get this started. Oh, please don't be hideous. Please don't be hideous. Please don't be hideous. Here you go. I am spinning this pretty thick. And I'm spinning fast. Which I've discovered, for those of you that haven't tried support spindles, I'd give it a shot. I'm finding that my support spindle spinning, just like when I started spinning on my great wheel, I'm actually spinning just as quickly on my support spindles as I am on some of my drop spindles. Sorry, that was probably a very stern look. I'm concentrating. But at least I've remembered to keep my tongue in my mouth. Okay, now for the fun. Let's see what happens when we spin under black light. So I did this very quickly last night, and I'm realizing, oh, would you look at that? I should have rinsed my fiber better. I did this very fast so I could get something, and I think what I'm going to do is go back and re-wash the fiber that I dyed last night, because I don't believe, in looking at my fingernails, which happened as I was putting it on the blending board, and my blending board is now glowing as well, I needed to wash the fiber a little bit better. So keep that in mind, unless you want sparkly, glowy fingers and fingernails. But let's take a look at what this is going to look like as yarn. So I'm going to go out for a bit. Okay, when stuff works out, it's really, really, really cool. And the fact that I have glowing fingernails now just adds to it a little bit. So this is what the yarn is going to look like when it's finished. And I am really, really pleased with it. So I hope those of you that are tuning in have had an incredibly happy Halloween, and that you found fun ways to celebrate. And if you give dyeing with highlighters a try in different colors, please, please, please share your results. I can't wait to see what you've created and what you share. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy spinning.